mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, learn to smile always and in all circumstances, to smile at your sorrows as well as your joys, your sufferings as well as your hopes, for in a smile there is a sovereign power of self-mastery. With always our love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 1, The Book of Beginnings, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge, page 59. A light grows in her. She assumes a voice. Her state she learns to read, and the act she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp, herself and all of which she is the sign. An inarticulate whisper drives her steps, of which she feels the force but not the sense. A few rare intimations come as guides. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain, and sometimes in our hours of dream and muse, the truth that she has missed looks out on her as if far off and yet within her soul. A change comes near that flees from her surmise, and ever postponed compels attempt and hope, yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare. A vision meets her of supernal powers that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with estranded great luminous gaze. Then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers, outstretching arms to the unconscious void. Passionate, she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. A mind unvisited by illusions gleams, a will expressive of soul's deity, a strength not forced to stumble by its speed, a joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just is her claim the all-witnessing gods approve, clear in a greater light than reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, Volume 2, topic Devotion and Self-Giving, subtopic Service to the Divine. Our Divine Mother says in the year 1954, no joy can be greater than that of serving the Divine. There is no greater joy than to serve the Divine. We must always, solely and exclusively be the servitors of the Divine. We should be in no other service but in God's alone. Above all preferences, we want to be at the service of the Divine. To be at the Divine service is the surest means of attaining realization. A difference between divine service to the Divine and meditation, our Divine Mother says, both are equally good. Nevertheless, through service, one can attain a fuller realization than through meditation alone. All service done sincerely to the Divine is sadhana, and all increase in the urge to serve is a sure sign of progress. Our Divine Mother says, whatever you do in life must be done as a service to the Divine and nobody else. Whatever you are, think or feel, you are responsible for it to the Divine and to nobody else. He is the sole master of your being and your life. If in all sincerity you surrender entirely to Him, He will take charge of you and your heart will be in peace. Our Divine Mother says, all the rest belongs to the world of ignorance and is governed by ignorance, which means confusion and suffering. Energy is in perpetual movement. It enters and leaves your physical being, and it is during your stay in what you call you that you must make of it an offering to the Divine and put it at His service. Then automatically you will do at each instant what the Divine wants you to do. Our Divine Mother says, the whole life turned towards the Divine, offered to the Divine at the service of the Divine, to become little by little an expression of the Divine Mother. Next subtopic, surrender to the Divine's will. Surrender. Our Divine Mother says surrender is the decision to hand over the responsibility of your life to the Divine. This is done either through the mind or the emotion or the life impulse or through all of them together. To surrender to the Divine is to renounce your narrow limits and to let yourself be invaded by it and made a sinner for its play. If you are truly surrendered to the Divine in the right manner and totally, then at every moment you will be what ought to be, you will do what you ought to do, you will know what you ought to know. But for that, you should have transcended all the limits of the ego. Our Divine Mother says, true surrender enlarges you. It increases your capacity. It gives you a greater measure in quality and in quantity which you could not have had yourself. Detailed surrender is a surrender which does not forget anything. It means the surrender of all the details of your life, even the smallest, most insignificant in appearance. And this means to remember the Divine in all circumstances. Whatever we think, feel, or do, we must do it for Him, as a way of coming close to Him, to be more and more what He wants us to be, capable of manifesting His will in perfect sincerity and purity, to be the instruments of His love. Our Divine Mother says, if man surrenders totally to the divine, he identifies himself with the divine. Perfect surrender is the indispensable condition for identification. In the integrality and absoluteness of bhakti and surrender, we find the essential condition of perfect peace leading to uninterrupted bliss. The path is long, but self-surrender makes it short. The way is difficult, but perfect trust makes it easy. Our Divine Mother says, surrender to the divine is the best emotional protection. The true repose is that of a perfect surrender to the divine. Question, sweet mother, what is the secret of success in sadhana? For this, our Divine Mother says, surrender. Next topic, to will what the divine wills. Our Divine Mother says, surrender is to will what the divine wills is the supreme wisdom. To will what God wills, that is the supreme secret. Will, one with the divine will, is a condition that triumphs over all obstacles. Divine will is the will expressing the highest truth. Let us do our best in all circumstances, leaving the rest, the result, to the divine's decision. We must be satisfied with what the divine gives and do what he wants us to do without weakness, free from useless ambition. Whenever there is any difficulty, says our Divine Mother, whenever there is any difficulty, we must always remember that we are all here exclusively to accomplish the Divine's will. And when our adhesion to the Divine's will is total, and then also our peace and joy becomes total. Our Divine Mother says, the Divine's will is that we should be like channels, always open, always more wide, so that His force may pour their abundance into the mouth. Our will must always be the perfect expression of the Divine's will. Our constant prayer is to understand the Divine's will and to live accordingly. We must lie before the Divine always like a page perfectly blank, so that the Divine's will may be inscribed in us without any difficulty or mixture. Our Divine Mother says, at each moment, may our attitude be such that the Divine's will determine our choice, so that the Divine may give the direction to all our life. We must see only through the Divine's eyes and act through the Divine's will. We must know how to depend for everything and in everything on the Divine. He alone can surmount all difficulties. Our Divine Mother says, in a total surrender to the Divine, there can be no longer any errors or faults or any insufficiency, since it is what the Divine has willed that He does, and it is done as the Divine has willed it. Always the supreme will remains the eternal mystery, calling for all our wonder and marveling. Like the child who does not reason and has no care, we trust ourselves to the Divine that the Divine's will may be done. Our Divine Mother says to do at each moment the best we can and leave the result to the Divine's decision is the surest way to peace, happiness, strength, progress, and final perfection. The only thing you have to do is to remain quiet, undisturbed, solely turned towards the Divine. The rest is in His hands. Question, sweet mother. One of the main problems of the present world is that the population has increased enormously in the last 100 years. So, how many souls evolved in such a short time? What will be the destiny of the world in regards to its population? Will the numbers go on increasing with the current speed, or will there be a certain period or drop without any artificial means? In case the population decreases in future, what will be the fate of so many souls that have evolved so far? For this, our Divine Mother says, there is a supreme consciousness that governs the manifestation. His wisdom is certainly much more greater than ours, so we do not need to bother about what will happen. Our Divine Mother says the Lord is always victorious in His own way, not in the human way, according to His own will and not according to the will of man. The Lord is always present, only we do not realize it. Our Divine Mother says we are always free to make our proposals to the Lord, but after all, it is only His will that is realized. If one looks from high enough, whatever one does, one never wastes one's time, since one acts according to one's nature and without knowing it according to the will of the Lord. Be quiet and offer yourself calmly and confidently, says our Mother. All that happens is always the effect of the Supreme's will. Human action can be the occasion and never the cause. Next subtopic, difficulties of surrender. Our Divine Mother says it is rare that somebody can surrender entirely to the Divine's will without having to face one or another difficulties. How many efforts and struggles again to give ourselves to surrender once the individuality is constituted. For if the struggle is not an actual one, that does not mean that it will not come one day in one form or another. For always, at least once in our life, we are placed in some circumstance to test whether we are ready for an entire surrender to the divine will, whether we are, before all, human beings striving to attain and manifest the Godhead, ready to renounce everything in the world, what seems to us good as well as what seems bad, for that supreme conquest. Our Divine Mother says, in that ascent towards the heights, both virtues and duties, that is to say, our mental prejudices and preferences, stand far more in our way than our exterior weaknesses and faults. An error can always be used as a springboard, whilst a virtue is more often a limit, a barrier that must be surmounted. Our Divine Mother says, I will add, quoting a passage of the Synthesis of Yoga, all these are within us, waiting to all in the spirit with forms, but we must always go beyond, always renounce the lesser for the greater, the finite for the infinite. We must be prepared to proceed from illumination to illumination, from experience to experience, from soul state to soul state, so as to reach the utmost transcendence of the divine to its utmost universality. Our Divine Mother says, the way in which most people surrender, let God manifest His will, but let it be the same as mine. One thing you must know and decide, says our Divine Mother, it is if you want the true divine as He is, or if you want a divine in keeping with your own conception of what He ought to be. And if you decided to surrender sincerely and totally to the divine, and to be and to do what He wants you to be, and do according to His own will, or if you want the divine to do what you want Him to do, and to act according to your own will. Our Divine Mother says, I have forwarded your prayer to the Supreme Lord. If you want to live in Ananda, you must not try to impose your will on the Divine, but on the contrary, you must be ready to accept all that comes to you from Him with the equal peace, because He knows better than what is good for our progress. Our Divine Mother says the time has come to rely only on the Divine and to let it work freely through you. I repeat, the time has come at last not to rely anymore on one's own petty will, to hand over the whole affairs to the Divine's will and let it do its work through you. Not only your mind and your feelings, but mainly through the body. And if you do it sincerely, all this body nonsense will disappear and you will be strong and fit for your work. Our Divine Mother says, when men will understand that the Divine knows better than they do what is best for them, many of their difficulties will disappear. If the Lord wills for you a hardship, do not protest. Take it as a blessing, and indeed it will become so. The Lord is not at all an all-powerful automation that human beings can move by the push button of their will. And yet, most of them who surrender to God expect that from Him, says our Divine Mother.